deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day.
All right, welcome back, everybody. My name is Freddie J, and we are on episode 4 of the Crypto Cabin podcast. All right, so we do understand that with proof of work, that Bitcoin is this incredible digital property. And all week long, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what are the similarities, and there are many, between digital property and physical property? What are the differences? They both take energy, lots and lots of energy. As we discussed in last week's episode, 200,000 kilowatt hours to mine a Bitcoin today if you're in a shared mining pool. That's how much you have to contribute to mine one Bitcoin, 200,000 kilowatt hours. But when you think of a home, of the glass or the wood or the steel, all of that, just getting it out of the ground and manipulating it so it's a usable part of your home, takes energy. Whether you're cutting down wood or glazing glass or installing pipes, keeping it comfortable, heated, and cool, it all takes a tremendous amount of energy. And I know this is a thing that midwits like myself like to say because it makes us feel smarter than we actually are, but I'm pretty sure it's a fundamental law of physics that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. It takes a lot of energy to build and maintain a home in California. Now, getting a Bitcoin and getting a home, whether it's slogging through those 51 disclosures or powering an ASIC, requires a ton of energy. A ton. We can agree. Bitcoin and housing, procurement, take a ton of energy. But then we wander off into this area where the physical property, your home, and the digital property, your Bitcoin, are absolutely nothing alike. Let's call that upkeep or maintenance. Because keeping a home in one piece in California, as I am finding out, taxes, furniture, cleaning, upkeep, very, very, very energy intensive and expensive, especially in LA. The cost of maintaining and owning and keeping up your Bitcoin, your digital property, pretty close to zero. Pretty close to actual zero. Provided you have a halfway decent operational security plan, OPSEC plan, and you can memorize, hide, and store a seed phrase. I would recommend some kind of multi-sig solution which spreads it away from the single point of failure, but it costs almost nothing to keep up that Bitcoin. You don't even really need to run a node once you've purchased your Bitcoin with all that energy locked in there. Whereas my home, which I've owned for approximately a decade, is falling apart. Dilemma. Dun, dun, dun. Now I got a problem. The dollar is running away from me. I took a home equity loan to build a dream project, which turned out to be fantasy. And what was quoted only, 18 months, 2 years ago as being a $250,000 remodel is now being quoted to me as close to $400,000 remodel. Cha-ching. I don't have that kind of dough. And I don't want to sell my Bitcoin. But I also have teenage kids in a 1-bathroom, 1,100 square foot home. So now probably a good time if you're buying, selling, or leasing anywhere. Westchester, Marina Del Rey, Venice, Playa Vista, Playa Del Rey, Culver City, Mar Vista. Please pick up the phone. Boy Freddie J here. Get you into a property. Help you sell your property. I got to put this extra bedroom on. And the dollar's running away from me. So now I know what this perfect money, what this digital property is going to mean in the future. And I believe that very small amounts of it are going to be worth even more than a home on the west side of Los Angeles. But the problem is, you can't have a beer in the backyard of your Bitcoin. I can't get in the bathroom of my own house anytime after 8 o'clock, any night of the week, and I now have 280-plus senior citizens staying with me. God love them. 1 bathroom, 6 people. Do you see my dilemma? Do I sell my Bitcoin so I can brush my teeth before 2 in the morning? Before I got into all this real estate stuff and started studying and became a realtor, the thing that set me down the path was actually the woman who helped me buy my house. We'll just call her Yumi. I don't think she'd mind. We don't have to use her last name. She was awesome. Patient, kind, and honest, and walked me through an incredibly difficult process because at the time, I was, like many people here in California, I was an amalgamation of different things, and I didn't have the steadiest work history. I had been 1099ing, private contracting, gig work for the NFL and for a then young company that you may have heard of. I'll give you the initials, the UFC. And I was doing all right. I had a young family. Was paying my bills. Somehow saved up a down payment. Biggest check I ever wrote was a down payment for my house here in California. And anyway, Yumi was absolutely amazing. And she actually made me want to become a realtor. Because of her honesty, because of her patience, because of her willingness to help us get into a home. Get into a home. And so we've got the similarities in the amount of energy needed to procure, build, acquire a home, and the vast amount of energy needed to mine a Bitcoin, both of which have a high premium attached to them. But there's another similarity that doesn't jump right out at you. And that similarity is both Bitcoin and property, at least single-family homes, have seemingly deviated from their original purpose. Their original, let's call it, place in the American dream. Now, Bitcoin, if you just head back to the white paper by Satoshi, is titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, which would lead me to believe its original purpose was to be a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And I'm still very hopeful that's where we wind up, with it as a digital cash system. Immutable, uncensorable, decentralized, where people can do commerce. Normies like me. Sure, we'll need there to be some legislation passed so that every time you do a transaction, you don't trigger some kind of taxable event because you made 4% on a Bitcoin you bought 6 months ago or 6 hours ago, as the case may be. That's not what we have right now. What we have is a lot closer to Bitcoin digital gold. And let's talk housing. Certainly for single-family residences. Starter homes, shall we say? Here in Los Angeles, that'll set you back, I don't know, $1.1, $1.3 million for a starter home. You want to raise a family with $1 million mortgage payment? It's tough. It can be done. And I think it's worth it. But part of the problem is, much like Bitcoin, which started out, at least theorized by Satoshi, to be a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, be it brilliantly designed and the incredible scarcity and number go up technology, has really turned into an asset that's sort of being hoarded right now. The layer 2s and the Lightning, Liquid, Fedi, Mints, and all that stuff just haven't quite come online yet. And strangely enough, much like single-family homes, we're sort of in American folklore as a place to raise a family, to build some generational wealth over time, and seemingly have become a place for private equity, Saudi sheiks, and Chinese billionaires to park dollars and money as a way to keep up with inflation, to retain purchasing power, to store value. And a lot of these homes just sit vacant. There's some right on my block right here in Culver City. Nobody in them. Not sure who owns them. I'm doing a ton of research on Realist, and inside that Vesta Plus digital walled garden of a maze to figure it out. Find a listing. Now, with all that said, there's something inside of me that wonders, maybe, just maybe, Bitcoin can go back to Satoshi's original vision as being a peerless person-to-person cash system, a way to do commerce, and housing, certainly single-family homes, can go back to a more utilitarian version as a place to be used to raise a family and host a gathering, and both be less as a place to stash cash, to store value. Now, I don't know if you've come across these old Sears Roebuck advertisements from the 20s, 30s, and 40s, but I'm going to pull one up and read it right to you. This one's from 1938. And the headline is, "Now is the time to build." There's a fine-looking couple in a dress and a top hat, and this particular model is called the Berkeley. It is the quintessential American-looking home. And it says 5 rooms and 1 bath, already cut and fitted. Price? $1,100. The ad goes on to say, "Now is the time to build. The man who selects his home site and builds well in the present market will be in the happy position of owning property which will materially increase in value for many years to come. Conditions are favorable at the present time. Cost of our guaranteed materials of all kinds is down, and skilled labor can be secured at lower wages than for many, many years. Your money invested in a home is a safe investment. Build your home with confidence." You could literally, for $1,100, have every piece of wood, every fixture, everything you need to build a home. And there was lots of people looking to build them. I mean, you gotta see some of these Cape Cod houses. I'm telling you, I'm not kidding. Some of these bungalows that they have for sale in the Sears Roebuck's catalog of the 1930s look like the home I'm sitting in right now, which is allegedly worth more than $1 million. Now, it is Wednesday, May 21st, and Bitcoin is rattling around at about $107,000 to $109,000, and it feels poised to rocket and break out. And as I sit here in this beautiful Southern California home that is in desperate need of a makeover, I will repeat, I don't want to sell my Bitcoin to do this renovation. I don't even know if selling the Bitcoin would be enough at this point. The dollar's running away from me so fast. I feel like as Bitcoin becomes a peer-to-peer cash system and adoption continues and the value goes up, maybe less people use real estate as a store of value. And it does revert back to a more utilitarian and practical use case. That Bitcoin doesn't just eat gold's lunch as a store of value, that it may wind up taking out a bit of the dollar's hegemonic power and slicing off a 10 or 20% piece of real estate. Now, I don't know if you've seen that chart that Michael Saylor's been floating around showing the distribution of global assets. You've got gold at 18 trillion, equities at 115 trillion, bonds at 300 trillion. There's about 120 trillion of money floating around, 330 trillion of real estate. Gold is at 16 trillion and Bitcoin at 2 trillion. Now, as we said earlier in the episode, the cost to maintain Bitcoin next to zero. The cost to maintain real estate, I don't even want to get into it. I'm drowning here. It's stupid expensive, especially in California. And it's worth it. It's worth every penny. The biggest expense most people will have is paying rent or a mortgage, and you may as well get a tax break and earn some equity. But the point is, go find that chart. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes. Take a look. And you see that Bitcoin is just a tiny little sliver of global assets. At $2 trillion, it's a gnat on an elephant's butt. Bitcoin just slices a small piece off. Let's call it 10% of money that used to go into real estate. $109,000 Bitcoin is going to look like a joke. It could be worth, if it catches gold, which would be an 8x from where it is right now, because Bitcoin's a $2 trillion asset class, you're looking at $1 million Bitcoin. And finally, one more karmic similarity. We have this saying in Bitcoin: not your keys, not your cheese. You want real ownership, you have to hold your own keys. You got to have a plan in place. If something happens to you, that someone else will have access to those keys, or your Bitcoin is gone. And whether you're a titan of industry, being asked that question on how you made it happen, or you Yumi the realtor who got out of a car some 10, 11 years ago with a loaf of bread, a bottle of wine, and the bunkiest set of schlag keys I'd ever seen, and put them in my hand. They were the keys to the first and so far only home I've ever owned. Owned in quotes. The keys to your success. The private keys to your Bitcoin. Or the keys to your first home. And my hope, my entire hope for all this, is not to bag on bonds or real estate or root for the demise of the dollar. My hope is, as Bitcoin gains adoption and hopefully finds its way back to becoming what Satoshi himself called a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, is that real estate becomes more attainable to more Americans than ever before. I think it's possible. So that's where I'm going to leave tonight's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Head on over to FreddieJHomes.com. You can find me on X at Crypto Cabin Pod. Coming soon with the Instagram. You can check it out at the website. But for now, I'm just going to say thank you and goodbye. We'll see you next week. Ciao for now.